Tonight on Bridge City News, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is finally calling for the rail blockades to come down, but opposition MPs are wanting the RCMP to actually enforce that. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney defends the Frontier Tech oil sands project, pointing out strong support from Indigenous communities and clean emissions technology. And the NMAC Centre was a busy place today, hosting the annual International Peace Powwow, gathering First Nations people together to celebrate their Aboriginal heritage and culture.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Paul Arthur.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. The Blackfoot Canadian Cultural Society held its annual International Peace Powwow at the Lethbridge NMAC Centre today. The Contemporary Aboriginal Arts Festival includes competition dances as well as music and visual arts presentations celebrating Indigenous heritage and culture, and gathers Blackfoot nations from Alberta as well as others from Western Canada and the U.S. to powwow together.
I know for me personally, growing up, that when I did get into powwow, it was empowering. So then you go back into your daily life after an event like this and you feel like you can almost conquer anything because you're so proud of what you do. So the goal of this is just to inspire, bring pride to Native people, and also showcase the positive aspect and the positive culture that Native people have in this area. We will continue doing it until we reach those goals.
To be back a part of this circle, it's a big deal. It's really a big deal. It's a great connection to spirituality, being back to my roots, and to be surrounded by my people.
The Peace Powwow continues for one more day with doors opening at 10 a.m. tomorrow. The Provincial Mixed Doubles Curling Championship is underway this weekend at the ATP Ice Centre, and two local curlers, Cody Smith and Krista Shortridge, are hoping the home ice fans will give them a boost. Event co-chair Stephanie Veenan says it's a great opportunity to see some top-notch curling.
It is a very competitive level. It's at the provincial level. Next, they're heading to Canadian Nationals in Manitoba next month, March 2020, at Portage La Prairie. There are 24 teams curling here. Teams consist of 2 people, so 48 total. We have a good curling community here, and we have lots of spectators coming out to cheer on these curlers. Yesterday we had lots of people at the opening draws and opening ceremonies, and a few people coming out today, and tomorrow we have the finals, so we encourage people to come on out and cheer on these curlers.
The 9th annual Coldest Night of the Year walk takes place tonight. Thankfully, the weather won't match up with the event name this year, but the Streets Alive mission walk does bring awareness to the reality of homelessness in our city.
It is a walkathon to raise awareness and funds for the homeless and for the poverty stricken here in Lethbridge. So the funds raised here will stay here. Those funds will be put into the programs that we run. They'll go into helping with the food bank. We have an emergency food bank that'll go into the dinner program that we run 7 days a week. It'll go into the pin bank, and definitely be here for supports for the people that we serve.
This year, participants will walk around the Evangelical Free Church in Lethbridge. Anyone wishing to donate to the cause can do so online at streetsalive.ca. Dozens of Nobel Prize winners have signed a letter urging Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to deny approval to the massive $20.6 billion Frontier Tech oil sands project in Alberta. A decision is supposed to come before the end of the month. Kenney told reporters in Calgary yesterday he suspects that the signatories were presented with a distorted view of the project.
Well, I think that often you see these mass letters signed by folks who don't live in Canada and don't always understand the details. In this instance, the Frontier Tech mine would operate at 50% of the carbon intensity of an average barrel of oil produced in North America, and 50% of the average barrel of bitumen produced in the Canadian oil sands, because of the application of cutting-edge technology. The Tech Frontier mine is supported by all 14 nearby First Nations in northern Alberta. Chief Alan Adam of the Athabasca Fort Chippewa Nation just reconfirmed that yesterday in media. And so those First Nations see this $20 billion investment that would create 7,500 jobs and create $70 billion of government revenue as an opportunity to move their people from poverty to prosperity. And we embrace the imperative of reconciliation. Reconciliation, first and foremost, means giving Aboriginal people a way out of poverty. And the partnerships that have been signed with Teck Mines, one of the most progressive mining companies in the world, with the highest, amongst the highest rankings for corporate social responsibility and environmental and social governance standards amongst the global mining industry. Teck has committed, by the way, to a net zero carbon plan by 2050 as a global company. I suspect these are facts that many of those signatories were not presented when they signed that letter.
Thousands of teachers marched around the Ontario legislature yesterday during a province-wide strike to put bargaining pressure on the government. The joint walkout by all four major teachers' unions marked the first time since 1997 that educators from all the labor groups were on strike on the same day. Class sizes, wages, and e-learning course requirements remain the key bargaining issues. The Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation says it plans to resume rotating strikes next week by walking out at several boards. Canadians are waiting for the other shoe to drop after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told Indigenous protesters and their supporters that blockades of rail lines must come down. A Wet'suwet'en hereditary chief says that won't happen unless and until the Mounties get off their traditional territory in northern BC and Coastal GasLink halts construction on a natural gas pipeline. Trudeau points out the RCMP have met one of the demands by offering to move its officers out of the territory and station them in a nearby town.
Every attempt at dialogue has been made, but discussions have not been productive. We can't have dialogue when only one party is coming to the table. For this reason, we have no choice but to stop making the same overtures. Of course, we will never close the door on dialogue, and our hand remains extended should someone want to reach for it. In fact, Ministers Miller and Bennett just got off a call with the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chief just minutes ago. But the fact remains. The barricades must now come down. The injunctions must be obeyed, and the law must be upheld. The RCMP, independently but in parallel to all our efforts, has made the decision to decommission that command post. That is a direct response to one of the clearest requests from the Wet'suwet'en hereditary leadership. And yet that has not unlocked the end to the barricades that we had hoped it would be, or were hoping to see. We continue to be hopeful that the leadership within these Indigenous communities will find a way to bring down these barricades peacefully.
Meanwhile, a major U.S. shipper, Atlantic Container Line, is turning away from the Halifax port and is now docking in U.S. harbors because of the ongoing blockades. Conservative leader Andrew Scheer says the Prime Minister's inaction on rail blockades has emboldened anti-energy protesters. Scheer says it is appropriate for the government to direct the RCMP to keep infrastructure projects clear and enforce injunctions.
Areas where there are protests that are under the jurisdiction of the RCMP, and I believe that having that leadership shown at the federal level would certainly send the signal that the Prime Minister is serious about what he's saying, but it's quite clear that he's not. In fact, he's sent the opposite signal. For days, he's been basically telling these illegal protesters that he's taking the use of police forces off the table. He's basically been giving them a signal that they can act with impunity. He's also talked about offering concessions to people who are breaking the law. And as we face developments in the future as it relates to other energy projects, these protesters will continue to be emboldened as they pursue their anti-free market, anti-energy development agenda. Nobody is talking about picking up the phone and telling the RCMP to arrest this person or that person, or to enforce the law this way or that way. But it is entirely appropriate and at this point very necessary that direction be given to, for example, keep critical infrastructure projects clear and to uphold court injunctions.
This morning, 129 Canadians woke up in quarantine in Cornwall, Ontario at the NAV Centre. They arrived on a plane yesterday from Japan, where they had been in isolation on a cruise ship that was stricken with the COVID-19 virus. Canadian medical experts say if a true outbreak of COVID-19 were to take hold here in Canada, the country's already stretched emergency rooms would find it difficult to cope. For now, the risk of contracting the virus in Canada remains extremely low. Meantime, another major outbreak has emerged in Asia, this time in South Korea. Officials there have reported 142 new cases of a viral outbreak, bringing the country's total to 346. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister is accusing Iran of undermining international law by preventing the examination of flight recorders from the Ukrainian jetliner it admitted to shooting down last month. Speaking to reporters after a major foreign policy speech yesterday, Francois-Philippe Champagne says he's been pushing Iran to allow the black boxes from Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 to be sent to France. The crash in Tehran 6 weeks ago killed all 176 people on board, including 57 Canadians. Recapping one of our top news stories, the annual International Peace Powwow gathered thousands of First Nations people at the Lethbridge NMAC Centre as they celebrated their Aboriginal heritage and culture today. And a look at weekend weather. The mild conditions will stick around for the next while. A few clouds overnight with a low of -6, then some increasing cloudiness tomorrow with a high of +6. Freedom of speech on Canadian university campuses used to be the norm, but not so much these days, it seems. Hal Roberts sat down with John Carpe, president of the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms, to discuss this and more. That is straight ahead. But first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Come for a night of down-home fun to the Friends Winter Barn Dance on Saturday, March 7th, beginning at 7 p.m. at the Galt Museum and Archives. Proceeds will go towards educational programs at the Galt. Tickets are $30 for adults, $20 for youth ages 11 to 17, and children 10 and under are free. Purchase yours by visiting galtmuseum.com. Southern Alberta Men's Ministry is hosting Shine Be the Light Men's Conference on March 20th and 21st at University Drive Alliance Church. Emceeing the conference is our very own BCN's Hal Roberts, with special guest speaker Pastor Leonard Anderson in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Tickets are $20 and $10 for college students. Purchase yours by visiting eventbrite.ca. For more information, call 403-327-4422. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.